Record. Okay, so I'm gonna put up a poll and you should see it in your screen. And just go ahead, it's 4 quick questions. And we'll take about 2 minutes to finish the poll. Okay, so about 5 of us, half of us have voted. We got a few more we're waiting for. So go ahead and answer that poll. I have a question. Let me take a look. You don't see the poll. Okay. So if you don't see the poll, don't worry about it. Answer live. I'll kind of share what the poll is about in a second. I don't know why some people get it and some people don't. It might be the browser that you're in. I'm not sure. But basically it says, have you ever attended a live online class? So let me go ahead and end the poll, and then I'll share it with everybody. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see this, maybe, maybe not. So most of you have never attended a live online class, so kind of a webinar format is what we're doing today. About half of you have attended a library instruction class on campus, which is good. And a lot of you start at the library databases when you're doing your research. Some of you start at Google, some of you start at Google Scholar. Those are all possibilities, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. And most people here are somewhat comfortable with finding scholarly articles. Some people are very comfortable, some people aren't comfortable at all. So we're gonna have a brief period at the end of class today to kind of work with finding scholarly articles. Not too much time. Most of the time we're gonna be focusing on other stuff. Okay, so let me get rid of that poll. All right, it looks like most of us are here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Now throughout the class today, I'm gonna be kind of jumping between you seeing my video and you seeing the PowerPoint and you seeing the browser when we're actually searching. So it's gonna take a little bit of time and you're gonna kind of transition over with me as I switch. So I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna share my PowerPoint. Okay. All right, so of course we all know that we are in the Kinesiology 306 library research session. My name's Trisha. I'm the Health Sciences and Human Services librarian. I actually started in this position just a couple weeks ago, but before that I was the instruction librarian here at CSUSM. So I've worked a lot with this class before, and I've worked a lot with students in all different ages here at CSUSM. This is all my contact information. I'm gonna also show you as we go on today where you can find that kind of information. Oops, and for some reason, I'm seeing that we're having an issue here. So if you can only see my face in that slide, then you might want to exit full screen, because for some reason on my student thing here, I could just see my face in that slide. So you might want to exit full screen if you can't see the contact information. So if you forget, this is my email address, the plancy@csusm.edu. You can always use the Ask a Librarian chat box in the upper hand right screen on the library website. So if you say that you're in Kinesiology 306 and you have a question, you need to talk to a librarian. If they can't help you, they're going to send you to me. So either way, you can chat with us, You can email us, you can give us a call, and we're available for you. So today, what we're going to be talking about is the difference between popular sources, authoritative sources, and scholarly journal articles. So these are three very different things, and you need to know the difference between these three things in order to complete your Check the Facts assignment. So we're going to be showing some examples and talking about how we can tell the difference between these things today. Now, popular versus authoritative is kind of the most difficult one. At least I think it's the most difficult one because you find them in the same place. You find them when you're searching Google. It's just a difference in quality, right? It's a difference in trustworthiness and reliability. And when we're telling the difference between popular and authoritative sources, we want to look at the context. So what is this information put out on the internet for? Is it just to educate people? Are they trying to sell something? What's the purpose behind this information? And also the content. So what kind of information is being included? If it's only a paragraph or a really short piece of information, that's not very helpful, especially not for your Check the Facts assignment, because you really want a little bit something more meaty, something that is actually giving you information. Now, the author and the organization, that's another interesting issue when you are looking at the difference between popular and authoritative. Because the author, we want them to be reliable, we want them to be trustworthy, we want to have a reason why we should listen to them, right? But a lot of times there is no author, especially on websites. Even if they're authoritative websites, there might not be an author. And this is because a lot of times organizations have groups of writers or a staff of writers that put this information together. And in that case, they won't list that there's an author. And we would default to the organization to see how reliable or how credible is this organization. Now, appearance. You guys are really good at this. You can tell if a website's really old versus something that's been kept up to date in the past couple years. We're going to look at some examples later, and you can see it's always a little bit more boxy. There's no date available on the older websites, or if there are, it'll tell you exactly how old it is. And remember, when we're looking for the date on a website, sometimes that'll be up at the very top at the article kind of by the name, or it'll be at the very bottom along the bottom, the copyright 2007 or 2014. Now, references. This is also something that's going to distinguish the two. Generally, in authoritative, they're going to give us where they're getting this information from. They're not just going to kind of make statements and not back it up. And a lot of popular websites or a lot of websites online don't necessarily do that. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Also, bias, that kind of comes back to the context of the website and the information. So is someone trying to sell you something? Is someone obviously leaning on one or the other political sides of the issue? And then the URL, which we're going to talk about in a second. Now, as we're going through these examples, you're going to notice that not one website might not have all these things perfect, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean it's not an authoritative or it's popular. It's kind of up to you guys to make the decision. Does this have enough of this list for me to trust this piece of information? And can you defend that? So let's talk about the URL real quick. Okay, so we got 4 URLs here. We have .com, .org, .gov, and .edu. Now, what do these mean? .com is commercial, so that means someone has paid to put this information online. .org sometimes means it's a nonprofit organization, not always though. I have a friend who has a .org website, and it's because it was cheaper to buy than the .com website. So again, this tells us a little something, but not the whole picture. .gov is obviously going to be government agency, and .edu is going to be educational website of some sort, so if it's associated with the university. And remember, this is helpful to give us tips about the source, but it's not necessarily the reason we do or don't trust a website. So for example, on a .edu website, professors a lot of times have blogs or personal web pages with the ending of edu because they have space on the server of their university, and they can write whatever they want on those pages. So that doesn't necessarily mean you want to trust everything that's on a .edu. I hope that gave you a little bit of background there. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen. You might see a little change. And then I am going to end the slideshow. And we're going to jump into the browser. So we're going to look at some examples. I'm going to make sure I don't have any questions. So if you guys ever have any technical difficulties or issues, go ahead and do the Q&A question, and I'll keep checking that to make sure that I know what's going on with you guys. Okay, so now I'm going to share my Google Chrome with you. Perfect. Okay. So we are going to look at a popular website and look at some of the characteristics we find with popular websites. Now, what I'm kind of interested in looking up is using zinc to help with the common cold. So I'm going to look at websites, popular, authoritative, and scholarly articles that have to do with using zinc to cure the common cold. Now, I'm sure you guys might be able to guess just by looking at this website whether this is popular or authoritative. It's popular, and we can't see a whole lot right now, but the first thing I noticed when looking at this website is that it looks a little bit old. It has kind of that boxy design that websites in the early 2000s have. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger if you guys, let's see. Okay. So as we go through this example, we see the appearance. It looks a little bit old, and we can see on the right here, they're selling us stuff, it seems. So get the book. There's some advertisements, and it's an advertisement for a product that this website is selling. So that automatically is kind of tipping me off. They're selling, what is this? Lotion and antiperspirant, and they all have the name of the website on them. So this is automatically making me think this probably isn't an authoritative site. Now let's look at the author. Here's the article title. It's written by Sarah Corriher, I guess her name is, but we don't have any information about the author other than her name. So she doesn't have an association with the university or a medical center. She's not giving us any background info. We just know her name is Sarah. So this is like a non-expert. This is just anybody putting information online, right? So in that case, we're going to look at the HealthWise report. So why should we trust this organization since we don't know who the author is? Well, we know who the author is, but we don't know why we should trust her. They're saying that they're credible, but I've never heard of them before. So I can kind of look through this website, and I've already done this before, so we're not going to do it together. And I can look for an about us section, right? So I can learn a little bit more about this website or this organization and where they're coming from. Now, we can tell up here that this is a .org. I don't know if you can see that. Yes, you can. It's a .org site. So in this case, that doesn't really tell us a whole lot. And I told you before, that doesn't always mean something. It doesn't mean that this is a nonprofit, right? It just means that they have the ending .org, which isn't a huge deal. So let's look at the actual content of this website. Now, I want to look a little bit at the wording. So it looks like this is actually pretty in depth. So it's not a short article. It's pretty long. Oops. Okay, sorry about that. And I just want to look at the way that they're talking, because when we're looking at authoritative websites, they're always going to be using professional language and technical terminology. They're not going to be using emotional or journalistic language. So let's see what we can find here. So according to many pharmacists, zinc is the single greatest dietary supplement. Chemists, pharmacists, and doctors alike glorify zinc supplementation. So that word glorify is very kind of emotional. trying to grab the reader's attention, which is a sign that it's a popular source. If I scroll down, I think there's another good example here. Under not all zinc is created equal. In the particular case of zinc oxide, it's a widely known carcinogen in sunscreens. This is a dirty industry secret, and sunscreens are the main reason why sunlight, blah, 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 blah. A dirty industry secret. So this, again, is that language that's telling us, you know, this probably isn't an organization trying to just get the facts off to us, right? They're trying to kind of convince us of something, which is what a lot of popular sites do. Let's see if there are any references. They have a whole lot of information here. And they have some related articles, but I don't see any references here, so they're not backing up any of the information that they're giving us with any real facts. However, we can go down, and I didn't see a date at the top, and I don't see a date. Let's scroll all the way to the bottom. Sorry that this is fast. Copyright from 2007 to 2014. That doesn't necessarily tell us when this was last updated, but there are some comments. So there was a comment in 2010, and someone responded in 2010. And then there's a comment in 2013, and no one has responded. So whenever I see stuff like this, generally that makes me think that no one's paying attention to this website. It's not being updated. So it doesn't have the currency that we're looking for, something that has been looked at least in the last couple of years, to be updated. So this is a good example of a popular site. I want to show you one other one real quick. It's a Dr. Oz site, and I like to bring this up just because we kind of get confused. So Dr. Oz, isn't he a doctor? Doesn't that mean I can trust him? Not necessarily the case. Just because someone's a doctor doesn't mean we can trust everything that they're saying. So if that doctor were to publish something, say in a peer-reviewed academic journal, stuff that we're going to go over later, and that was reviewed by other doctors and other scholars, then we might be able to say, okay, this stuff has been reviewed by their peers. But if they just have stuff on a website and it's kind of an article just meant for the general public, and there are no citations, generally it's just meant to be just a fun, popular source, which is fine. You do need one of those, but it's not authoritative. So let's look at what an authoritative source looks like. Okay, so Medline Plus. I automatically recognize Medline Plus. I know that this is something I've heard before, and I can see right on the web page. Let's see. I think you guys are going to have my picture over it. But it's a service of the U.S. National Library of Medicine, part of the National Institutes of Health. And I can see it ends in a .gov, so that does kind of verify that this is part of the National Institute of Health. So right away, I kind of know, I know where this information is coming from. The appearance is clean. It's broken up neatly into sections, so I can kind of see and learn about the things I want to learn about without having to kind of go through the whole thing. Talks about how effective, if there are any safety concerns, and a lot of times, when we're looking for authoritative stuff, you want to see both sides. You want to see this is what it's good for, and here are some concerns, or here are some drawbacks. They usually will be presenting both sides because they're not necessarily trying to convince you of anything. Okay, I don't see any ads like we saw on the other website. There's no author though. If I scroll down, there's no author up here. I go all the way to the bottom. It's pretty long. So I apologize for the scrolling, but I don't see an author. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that we can't use this source. It just means that when we are evaluating the reliability of the author, what we're actually going to be doing is evaluating the reliability of the institution that's putting out this information. Okay. Now this is also written for the public. So both popular and authoritative, they're written for the general public to read. However, whereas popular, sometimes they're trying to convince you of something, they use very flowery language. Authoritative sources are going to be a little bit more professional and a little bit more technical. So they're not going to use exclamation marks or, you know, hey girlfriend, blah, 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 blah. They're not going to do that. They're just going to be giving you the facts. And I can already see this. Some people use zinc for an eye disease called macular degeneration, blah, 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 blah. It is also used for this. So it's just giving us the facts. And now let's take a look and see if we can find some references and see if we can find when this was last updated. So again, I'm sorry about the scrolling. I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom and wait for you guys to catch up. Okay. Now we can see at the very bottom here, it says last reviewed in 2014. So that's pretty good. It was reviewed pretty recently. And they have references listed here. They only have 10 right off the bat. And if I look at these references, I can tell that a lot of them are scholarly articles, which is what we want to see. And if I show more references, it's going to pull even more, so a whole lot of references. So this is a really good example of a website, an authoritative website that's giving me information. It's not a scholarly article, but it's an authoritative website that I can use. Okay. So that's all I wanted to do with the popular and authoritative. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. And again, this is going to automatically put you guys in full screen mode. So you can click more and exit full screen to actually see this PowerPoint in a useful way. Okay, so now we're jumping to scholarly or peer-reviewed academic journal articles. Now this, I do it separately from my talk about popular and authoritative, because popular and authoritative are kind of on the same level, but authoritative is obviously more trustworthy, more authoritative for reasons we've already discussed. Scholarly journal articles, they're not even websites. These are not websites. We find them online, but they are not a website that someone put together. These are research articles that are published in physical academic journals, and then they're scanned and put onto the internet so we can search them through our databases. So sometimes they're going to come up if you do a Google search, just because a lot of scholarly articles are now available freely online. So sometimes they do pop up through a Google search, but generally we're going to find them through the library databases. They're peer-reviewed. So the peer review process, I really briefly mentioned it a little while ago. Basically what happens is a scholar will do some research. They are going to they're going to write their article, and then they're going to send it to the journal. So say I'm publishing something and I send it to the Journal of Library Science, and I want to see if I can get it published there. They're going to take my name off of that article that I wrote, and they're going to send it out to 6 or 7 different librarian faculty members that study the same thing that I study. And they're going to mark it up. They're going to say, you know, you need to explain your data better here, or you're not supporting yourself enough here. They're going to find lots of problems with my research. And in order to get it published, I have to fix all those problems. So it sounds pretty simple, but actually only 3 out of 10 make it through this process, which is why there's such a big difference between scholarly articles and everything else, because it's a very rigorous process for scholars to make it through. A lot of times these are new ideas or original research. So say I try something brand new and I do a research article about it. That's generally what you're seeing when you're searching the literature. Sometimes they're just new ways of looking at existing research. So if it's a literature review or just a new idea, sometimes it can take that form as well. The author of scholarly articles are always going to be scholars. So these are people who are creating new knowledge, creating new information. Generally, they're associated with institutions or colleges or universities or medical centers, and they're going to tell you that. You're going to be able to know that these are scholars and that they're associated with these places. And they're written for scholars. So this isn't for the general public. They don't really care if we can't understand it. They're going to use their specialized language, and it's meant for their peers. It's not meant for everybody else. But since we are student scholars, we also have to know how to understand their articles. Okay, they're going to look different too. So this is a little example of just the front page of a scholarly article. We're going to jump into the databases right now and find another one. But you can see that the journal title is up at the top. You have all the scholars' names up here, and they have numbers next to them because once you go to the bottom of the page, they're going to tell you what kind of degrees they have and what institutions they're associated with. So they're always trying to tell us that they're scholars. You're always going to know that it's a scholarly article because they're going to have the information of the scholars there. And it's formatted in a certain way. Generally, there's an abstract and then an introduction and then a methods maybe, or results and discussion. It's going to be broken up into different sections. And it's going to be really long too. Okay. So let's actually switch to browser and find some of these. So I'm just going to stop sharing real quick. Okay, so now you should just see me. Okay. And sorry, I have to deal with a slideshow issue real quick so that my screen looks normal again. Okay. And I'm checking my Q&A. I don't have any questions. Okay. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my Google screen again. Okay, but now we're going to start at the library website. So this is always where you want to start when you're looking for scholarly articles. And part of the reason is, like, if you go into Google Scholar, for example, without going through the library website, Google Scholar isn't going to recognize that you're a student at CSU San Marcos who has access to all these resources. So you won't see the little Get It at CSU SM button. But if you enter through the library website, it's going to automatically make that connection because it's going to make you log in before you go to the library databases. So there's the Ask a Librarian chat in the upper right-hand corner. And I'm going to go to your course guide because you guys have the Kinesiology 306 course guide specifically for this assignment. Come on, course guide. Okay, there we go. So Kinesiology and 306. Okay, so there's a lot of tabs here that are going to be really helpful. Deciding on a topic, the different types of sources. There's some review about what's scholarly and what's popular. There's APA citation tips. So I really recommend you guys using the Diana Hacker online handbook. And let's just click on it real quick so I can show you. I like this because it gives you examples that you can just basically copy. So article in a journal, article in a magazine, article in a newspaper, it'll show you how to do all those things. So just keep in mind that those are there. I'm going to go to where to search. And this is going to list all the databases that are useful for what you guys are going to be researching. So I'm going to search in Academic Search Premier, which is a pretty big multidisciplinary database that has peer-reviewed articles, among other things. Okay, so I'm going to type in common cold and zinc and just search. I'm going to start real broad. So I get 206, and now I can filter. So if I only want within the last 10 years, I can pull this little tab, 5 years, up to 2009. And I can also put quotes around the common cold. And when I put quotes around something, that's just basically saying I want to search using this phrase exactly as I have typed it. So instead of searching everywhere that says common and everywhere that says cold, it's going to search common cold as a phrase. Let's see if that changes anything. Yeah, so that brings us all the way down to 31. So I lost some stuff, but that's okay. So I'm going to search through these, a controlled trial, published in Pediatrics and International Child Health. That looks pretty good. This is very nice. Zinc for the treatment of the common cold, a systematic review and meta-analysis. So basically what this does is this is reviewing all the articles that have looked at zinc and the common cold. So they've kind of done a lot of the work for you. I'm going to click the Get It button. Actually, I'm going to click this first so I can show you guys something. So this is the record, all the authors with all their information, the abstract, the DOI, and there's this little thing on the right-hand side that says Cite. And this is nice to kind of just get started on your APA citations, so here it is. But I would generally take this, paste it into my bibliography, and then fix it based on either looking at the APA guidebook or by looking at the Diana Hacker website. Because a lot of times there's stuff wrong with these generated APA citations, so we want to make sure that it's correct by double checking it in a good guide. Okay, but let's actually try to find the article. Okay, so what this is doing is it's redirecting me to PubMed Central. So that's okay, I'm going to click PubMed. And here it is. What's kind of confusing when you jump around into different databases is you have to then look for the PDF, which we can do, but you have to kind of get used to searching out the page that you're on for the PDF. In this case, it's right here. So I click on the PDF. Here's the article. We've got an abstract. We've got a method section. We've got results. It's really long, no pictures, right? And then at the very end, I'm going to go down real quick here. There's going to be a lot of references. So that's what an article looks like, a scholarly article. I'm sure a lot of you guys already know this by now. And when we want to save, we're going to kind of hover over the right-hand side of the screen. You guys can't see that for some reason, but it's on the bottom right, and it's going to have a little disk-looking thing that you would save that way. And you can just save it wherever you want on your computer. Okay. So let's go back to the result list, and let's look at a couple other ones. So when I narrow by scholarly, which I didn't show you guys yet, I'm glad I remembered to do that. On the left here, you can narrow by scholarly or peer-reviewed only. Okay, so supposedly only these articles should be scholarly articles. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. So we always have to double check and make sure that these are actually scholarly. And we can tell generally by looking at them if they're not scholarly. So let's see. I'm taking the cold front. Okay, let's try this one. This doesn't sound very scholarly. Update from the cold front. There's no cure in sight, but there do seem to be ways to make the common cold less common. Okay, so automatically, that doesn't sound like a scholar talking to me. So I'm going to look at the full text and see. Yep, so this is not a scholarly article, even though I narrowed by scholarly. No, there's no references. It's only one page. So this is why we have to double check. All right, I'm going to look at one more. Let's see. Here we go. Expression and purification of coronavirus. Let's try to get this one. I'm going to click the Get It button. But it's going to say no full text available. So sometimes you guys are going to come up against this where you're trying to get the article, but it's saying no full text and you don't know how to get it. That's okay. We can request it through interlibrary loan. So this request this item right here, I'm actually going to see if I can make my mouse a little bit more obvious. There, that's better. Okay, So request this item is what we want to do. It's going to have me fill in my information for interlibrary loan, which is fine. And then it's going to welcome me back because I've done this before. And when I request something, it automatically fills the information for me. So I don't even have to fill anything out. All I have to do is scroll to the bottom and click Submit Request. Now, when Interlibrary Loan gets this article, they're just going to email me a link that brings me back here and allows me to get the PDF. So they'll have the PDF listed under your electronically received articles. It'll be right here. So you don't even have to go to the library to pick it up. All you have to do is click on the link that they send you and you'll have the article. Generally, we say this takes about 2 days, but for me, it always takes less than that. It usually is just about 1 day, maybe even less, because interlibrary loan works pretty fast. So if you can't find the actual article, if it says no full text available, that's okay. Remember that you can always request it through interlibrary loan. Okay. All right, so that's my searching through databases. I'm actually gonna show you, go back to the guide real quick, our course guide. Because I searched in Academic Search Premier, but there's a lot of other databases that'll be useful for you guys. So Google Scholar is going to be a big one too, but remember to enter through this page, through the library website, so it recognizes that you're a student. PubMed, CINAHL is our nursing database. PsycInfo is our psychology database. So if your topic has something to do with psychology, you'd probably want to search in PsycInfo. Okay. So I'm going to switch windows now. We're going to go back to the PowerPoint. Oh, I got a QA. No, let me answer that live. Interlibrary loan doesn't cost anything, so it's totally free. I mean, it costs the library something, but you guys are already paying the library with your tuition. So you can do interlibrary loan as many times as you want, and it's free for you. And it's very nice with the scholarly articles, because like I said, you don't have to go pick anything up. They just email you. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Okay, so let's go back to the slideshow. And this is just a recap. Oh, it brought me all the way back to the beginning. That's okay. We'll jump through this pretty quick. And again, you might have to, for some reason, I always have to exit full screen in order to actually see the PowerPoint. So you probably have to do that too. Okay, so in summary, the difference, popular sources, they're easy to read, they're written for the general public. A lot of times they're written by journalists or non-experts. There's very rarely references, but sometimes they might list like 2 or 3 references. And they often represent unsupported facts or opinion. So sometimes this is going to be, newspaper articles, magazine articles, anything from the popular press, anything that's kind of meant to entertain people or to kind of evoke emotional responses from people. That's going to be a popular source. Let's make sure that I'm including everything. Yep, that's pretty much it. Authoritative sources. Now this is less for entertainment. This is to inform people. It's still written for the general public, but it's written by a group of experts. So for example, Medline, that was probably written at least in part with the help of experts. So experts kind of adding their 2 cents or reviewing the article once it's written or something like that. So there is a sense of people knowing what they're talking about, even though they're not scholars. So we'll call them experts. The language is very technical, not flowery or emotional. A lot of times they will be supported with references. And we recognize and trust the source generally. So if you don't recognize the source, but everything else looks good, what I generally do is I Google it or I Wikipedia the organization or the source, so I kind of have some background on them. I've done that a lot before, actually, especially with nonprofits. Like, does anybody else trust these people? Is anyone talking about these people? So a lot of times, a little bit of research on your part will make it a lot easier to determine if they're a useful source. Now remember, this isn't a checklist, so it's not like you have to, find something and say, okay, technical language, written by experts, supported with references, all this kind of stuff has to be there. It's kind of gonna be up to you guys to decide, but this is what should be guiding you. A really good example of where it's gonna be kind of up to your judgment is in the content. What is actually on the website? So if I go to Mayo Clinic or Mayo Clinic, one of those, and they only have a paragraph about zinc, and they're not really giving me any references, but it's Mayo Clinic. So it's gonna kind of be up to me. Is the content enough? Is it helpful enough? Do I feel like I trust the source enough to bump this up to an authoritative source? It is kind of in that gray area of you guys being able to decide and then be able to defend your decision if, say, your instructor doesn't agree. You should be able to defend your position. Okay. And then scholarly, it's published in academic journals, it's peer-reviewed, written for scholars, written by scholars. There's bunches of references, and they're pretty long. These are definitely they're easier to distinguish from popular and authoritative sources because they're not in a website format. They're like in a PDF format. Okay. All right. So at this point, if you guys have any questions, I'm going to give you just 2 minutes to think of any questions you may have and ask those questions, because I know this was a lot of information. And then I'm going to have you guys do a survey real quick. Oops. Sorry, my screen's going a little bit crazy. I'm trying to get out of the full screen here. Can you have a copy of the PowerPoint? Sure, I'll go ahead and email the PowerPoint to your professor and she can add it to the Cougar courses. Because there is going to be a quiz on the information that we talked about today. So this will be a little bit helpful, but keep in mind the part where this is kind of your guys' decision in part. This is to guide you evaluating resources and telling the difference between popular and authoritative. So I answered that. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Will it let me go to the next slide from current slide? Okay. For popular, generally popular is kind of anything. I mean, popular is the group that we just put all the stuff that we find on the internet into that group. I imagine for your Check the Facts assignment, you'll want it to give some kind of helpful information, but most things fall under popular if you find them online. The hard thing is distinguishing authoritative from popular and kind of seeing that difference. I hope that makes sense. So almost everything's popular until it gets the authority, it gets the reliability, it defends its sources enough, it's put out by a trusted source. Okay, so my preferred hours, I kind of teach a lot, I do reference a lot, so the best way to contact me is just by emailing me. Oh, this thing is crazy, sorry. I'm trying to answer this and do this at the same time. Okay, so now the survey should be back. So you can email me at any time and we can set up an appointment to meet. And my email address is on this last slide, plancy@csusm.edu. If you guys will just type this into your browser, that'll be helpful. It's a really quick survey. This is the first totally online instruction session that I've done. So I would really, really appreciate any feedback about the online format. So did you have any technical difficulties? Did anything bug you as I was kind of switching between PowerPoint and browser? The more information you could give me on how this works for you, the better, because I'll be able to make changes based on this session. Okay. Okay. So I think that's it. That's all I have to say today. So if you guys, again, if you have any questions, you can always email me. And yeah, that's it. I'm glad that you guys were able to attend today. And I believe that your professor is going to send out the link for the quiz or give you access to the link for the quiz. And you're going to have until tomorrow at 4 p.m. to take the quiz. All right? So thank you guys for coming. And good luck on your Check the Facts assignment.